need all the items we can get, from food, clothing, school books, medicines, building materials, and pretty much anything you can give us to help ease the situation they find themselves in at the moment. Donations are welcome from all of you. You can also send us mobile money through our Momo number. The number is 05974331110, or you can send it to our merchant number 120494. The merchant's name is 3 Foundation, and please remember to add a reference Akosombo. So when you send the money, add a reference Akosombo so we know exactly what the donation is for. If you have any questions or you want to call us and talk to us about how to assist, please call us on 0243 126 282. 0243 126 282. That's the number to reach us on if you'd like to call us to assist. We look forward to doing this with you. It's a matter of national interest. We all have to come together to help solve this problem, or at least help assist. Also, this morning, we're giving away 1,000 Ghana cedis to about 3 people on cash out. All you have to do is dial *439#. That's it, *439#. We'll do the draw and you just could be smiling when you check your Momo balance. It's instant. So dial now, *439# now. And then we'll continue our conversation. This morning, we're talking about the dam spillage. We had news from the Ghana Meteorological Agency. They're saying that the Volta, Eastern, and Greater Accra regions should expect more rains from tomorrow and the coming days. And so that's a problem. So we've been informed that the Office of the Ghana Meteo are saying that more rains are coming in the coming days, and the general public needs to be guided by these forecasts. So basically, it's not ending. Perhaps it's only just beginning. Now, let's take a look at the story, and then when we come back to the studios, I will introduce you to my guests, and then we'll start our conversation. Stay tuned.
We came up with the outlook from tomorrow, Wednesday, through to 23rd October, how we are anticipating it to be like. So it's still going to be variably cloudy across the Volta parts of eastern regions into Greater Accra. And then we are having 40 to 70% chance of rain, which is likely to come with thunderstorms and lightning. And we are looking at the active spots between 20th and 23rd. That is when we are still anticipating that there will be another outburst of rainstorm. But tomorrow, we still have 30% chance that there will be some localized formation of rain and thunder around that area. So we just need to be careful. We will also be monitoring, and then we'll keep updating them so that they can get themselves ready. So now till November, yes, rain is still in the forecast.
So that was Felicity Ahafianyo from the Ghana Meteo Agency. She's saying that from today, between today to late October, we should expect more rains. And that's a problem considering what we are seeing now in the Volta region and some parts of the Greater Accra region. We have heard that over 26,000 people have been displaced. We've also heard that the area, North Tongue and South Tongue, have been declared public health emergency zones, with malaria, typhoid, and cholera probably going to be on the rise. We've heard about the stench, the difficulties that the people are living in at the moment. And we're asking, is it time to declare a state of emergency? What do you think? Also, we're going to be talking about matters arising from the National Cathedral, as 2 of the members of the Board of Trustees have resigned. I'm joined this morning by lawyer and politician, former health minister. He was here yesterday. He's back here. Alex Segbefia is here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
You're welcome to the show. Good to have you.
And good morning to your viewers as well.
We're also pleased to be joined by former MP for Kaikwe South, Nana Komia. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
And thank you for bringing us gifts.
Well, you know, the NPP we care.
So we are promoting made in Ghana goods. What?
He needs to soften you.
He needs to soften me. Well, maybe it's working because because we like we like made in Ghana chocolate. And while we are smiling and having a lovely morning, it's not the same in North Tongue, South Tongue, and many parts of the Volta region as communities have been totally submerged. They've been declared public health emergency zones. Yesterday, we saw a very sad story of a pregnant woman without a life jacket on a canoe trying to cross, and so many other issues coming up. Now, I'm sure you've been following. Some people are calling now for the declaration of a state of emergency. What are your thoughts on this? Anakumia.
Oh, thank you, Shoko, and a good morning to your audience and my good friend, my former boss, whom I haven't seen in a long time. Yes, the situation in the lower Volta, it's a very dire situation. All of us know in the last 2 weeks, we have talked about nothing else. But the biggest silver lining of the biggest good news about this is that looking at the scale of the disaster and the numbers that have been displaced, the communities that have been displaced, the biggest good news is that there has been no reported loss of lives. And that goes to the work that obviously has been done by institutions like the NADMO, the Ghana Armed Forces, the Army, the Navy, VRA, and so on. A lot of work obviously has been done to ensure that there has been no loss of life in the face of the magnitude of the situation. There was a dam burst in Libya recently, a couple of weeks ago, and over 2,000 people lost their lives. And we have been lucky, there hasn't been any loss of lives, and it shows that some work has been going on. Like you mentioned, a total of about 26,000 people are reported to have been displaced in several districts, in Central Tongue, South Tongue districts, Adan, as far down as Keita and Anglong, even Shai Osudoku. You have people being displaced, as Sojamandi, near Kosombo. And we've also heard reports that 10,000 people have been moved to safe havens. That means they've been given some shelter out of the 26,000. So obviously, a lot of these people found shelter and accommodation with relatives and friends. In Mepe, which seems to be one of the worst affected communities, there are 9 safe havens. And all of these are receiving the relief items, food, medicine, water, toiletries, and so on. I think yesterday or so, or was it 2 days ago, the president was there to show solidarity, and he said that he was going to bring the weight of the presidency in relieving the situation. An interministerial team has been set up, consisting of literally the entire cabinet. Ministry of Health, Ministry of Roads, Agriculture, all of them have been set up specifically to coordinate work. And going forward, the efforts that have been made so far have to be intensified. The provision of relief items, food, clothing, more and more shelter, safe havens, sanitation, medicine, we have to intensify. There has to be a big national effort.
You think it's time to declare a state of emergency?
Anything that can provide us with resources to relieve the people, if international assistance, and this by any stretch qualifies for international assistance, and anything that the government can do to bring this situation to international attention so that we can get some additional support from the international community, whether it is by declaring a state of emergency or whether whatever channels are available to make this an international issue has to be done. Because at the moment, these Ghanaians are in terrible distress, and all our efforts should be to relieve their situation. Post the flooding, nobody can be sure when the flooding is going to stop, because the water levels behind the dam are still at a level that are dangerously high. And so we expect that the flooding would go on for quite some time. Post the flooding, the rehabilitation of the people, the resettlement, the properties that have been lost, livelihoods that have been lost, farming that have been destroyed. There's going to be a huge effort to rehabilitate. So this is not going to be a couple of days affair. I'm looking at the next 6 months of national efforts, hopefully international assistance to get the situation under control.
I'm glad you mentioned resettlement. There have been some calls for the government to consider resettling the displaced people in the Saglemi housing project. Have you heard?
No, I haven't.
But what's your thought on that?
Saglemi, where is what is the distance from Saglemi and the town area? Saglemi is where is it located?
Well, it's not a question of distance. It's actually a question of availability of empty
you mean
housing.
Like now?
So it's available. Why not consider moving the displaced people there?
Now, as we speak,
yeah,
any available facility that can provide shelter should be mobilized. As for that one, if there's, the housing estate is available, I mean, because the people need the shelter immediately, the shelter first, before you can deliver the food and the medicine and the toiletries and everything, water. They have to have shelter. So if Saglemi is available, and luckily the Ministry of Works and Housing is part of the interministerial team, and I'm sure they will consider this. I mean, it's like something that will fit in almost naturally into the situation. So I would think that the interministerial committee will consider this and take a decision very quickly.
Okay, Mr. Segbefia.
Well, good morning once again. Good morning to my colleague Nana Akomia, who I haven't had the pleasure of crossing swords with for quite a while.
Look for me.
The same comment. Okay. That is true. He who feels it knows it. Anyway. Starting off, let me commiserate once again with the people who have been affected by the spillage. It's an act of God insofar as rainfall and water levels are concerned, but it's an act of man as to when you open the dam and how you calculate what is going to happen. So it becomes imperative that we do these things in stages. The first, obviously, is what everybody is talking about. How do we relieve the plight and the suffering of the people? Mm-hmm. And that should be the paramount concern for everybody. The second is, how did we get here? Dams, even from the Burkina dam, which is opened annually, we've known what kind of destruction it causes to the people in that area. In the last time this happened with the Akosombo Dam, to anything close, not even close enough, to this extent was, I think, 2010. I had the pleasure of speaking with, or being on a chat show with one of the gentlemen who works with VRA, one of the engineers. And they had actually carried out a simulation earlier this year in the belief that there was the possibility of this happening at some point. The question is, how far did they anticipate or should they know? And we are beginning to see a lack of quick decisions again. We've just heard that more rains are coming.
Yeah.
Whether they come or not, work on the basis that they are coming. Because you've seen the destruction that it can cause. Especially if the rains are upstream and not downstream. Downstream, you're there and it's happening. But when it's upstream, it accumulates behind the dam, they'll open, and then it comes in a different format. So none is good at this stage, but it even gets worse when the tributaries that are feeding into the dam are actually getting more rainfall. The belief was that the dam was opened on the 15th of September, and it was hoped that possibly by the end of October, they may be able to shut it down or shut close the taps of the spillage and regularize it. It may not be the case, because if we are expecting rainfall at this stage, even by the time the rains stop, all the rain that is upstream will still be coming down into the dam. And once there's a certain level, they must keep that the valves or the taps open, if I can put it that way. So it doesn't look like this is going away anytime before possibly the middle of November, where some sanity may be restored. And that is a major concern. And therefore, I don't think there's any harm in declaring a state of emergency now, so that at least everybody wakes up to the position that we are in. Yes, I agree with Nana Akomia that fortunately there hasn't been any fatality that we know about. But let's not wait for it. Let's make sure that we stay where we are in terms of lives. And then there's a serious health risk in the background looming, which cannot be overlooked. So there are real serious issues, apart from food, clothing, and shelter, which are the immediate ones for now. And if we don't address it, then we will have problems. Then there's the third line, which is, okay, what do you now do to prevent such a thing happening ever in the future, or to the extent that it happens? Because there's always a gap, normally of anything up to 5 to 10 years, sometimes more, between these occurrences. It's kind of people forget. But with climate change, we may have a lot more of these occurrences happening now, more so than before. And we'll take it from there. What's the advantage, if there's ever an advantage, is that we can rely more on hydropower now and less on fuel, which is more expensive. But it also depends on the type of contracts we have, etc. So that's where we are.
But you're former health minister.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? The regional director of public health, Dr. Sananu, yesterday said that the North Tong and South Tong districts have been declared a public health emergency zone because of cholera, typhoid, malaria. We're told that some of the facilities submerged underwater now are mortuaries, cemeteries, hospitals, and so on. Is the Ghana Health Service properly positioned to be able to handle a possible public health crisis, in your opinion?
Well, waterborne diseases are going to be on the rise, and everybody has to be alive to it. The water cannot be used in any shape, form, or form. It's totally contaminated for all the reasons you've mentioned. And some of it is going to go into areas of stagnation. And in those areas, once you have stagnation, you'll get mosquitoes. So that brings its own headache in terms of the malaria and other diseases you've mentioned. Cholera would be necessarily on the rise in those areas, if not monitored closely, and as well as typhoid. and a few others that are not mentioned on an everyday basis. So it is increasingly clear that we have a major public health scare on its way. And you have to be prepared. So let's start looking for the vaccinations or the medication now. Let's not wait for us to say that, oh, it's now happening. Where are we getting this drug from? Start getting it now, because it is going to come. The water levels are so high. People are staying in shelters. People are clumped together. They are in the environment of stagnant water, etc. They haven't got proper toiletry facilities.
Yeah.
So even with the best will in the world, one can see a possible public health scenario. And we should, now we're in it, we should just not wait for it to escalate before we take the necessary actions. And that is one of the problems some of us find, that we've already been reactive. Let us now become proactive. And that is important. And it costs money.
Yeah.
But that is where government comes in. And government should make the funds available for the institutions involved to become proactive. We are calling on industry as well. And once again, I say the 48th Regiment has done well. The military are in there. The Navy are also in there. And other institutions are doing their best. But we should have seen this coming in much earlier. Mm-hmm. And even though I know, and I've heard it, said that yes, there was some communication. Were the MPs brought into it? Were the chiefs and people in the area notified? Were there any steps to get people to evacuate?
Exactly.
Before this happened? Because we knew it was coming. And why you waited for it to actually take place and then started going through the process. So that was clearly reactive. I don't think the communication was strong enough. I'm not saying, and let's make a difference between non-existent and strong enough. Mm-hmm. There had been communication. But it's the sort of thing that if you just hear it on the radio, say, if people don't come around more or less beating a gong at your door and saying, you better get out, this is happening, nobody will take it seriously. And it would have been better if they had done that, but the waters hadn't come, than not to do it at all, or to that extent. And now the waters have come, and we have a bigger problem.
Speaking of being proactive, do you think that perhaps it's time, and Anakuma, come here, perhaps it's time to consider permanently resettling all of the people in that area? Now, I'm asking this because I believe at the time the dam was first constructed many years ago, that's what was done. The people who lived in those areas were evacuated, resettled before it was constructed. Is it time to consider doing this again, considering the level of this disaster that we have now experienced? And we're told that this is probably just the beginning.
Well, like you had mentioned, and then your issue about the health. It shouldn't be just the health matters that should be placed under an emergency. Every activity should be organized on an emergency basis in this occasion. Mm-hmm. The supply of food, the supply of shelter, we're talking about looking as far as the housing.
Settlement.
Being appropriated to relieve the shelter situation. The supply of medicine, sanitation, water, everything has to be placed in a state of emergency, including the health, because they are all interrelated. The scale of this disaster, I understand that the last time they had a scale was 1967, 1968. Mm. And when you talk of the scale, you're talking of the number of gates that have been opened. Usually, the dam, the water level is high, they would open one gate. They may open two gates. Mm-hmm. you don't hear much of it.
Yeah.
It's able to be contained. The last time they opened 6 gates, like they've done this time, was in 1967, 68. And as you can imagine, at that time, the settlements were not as dense as this. And there's a lot of. So, since that time, 67, 68, where you have all these gates being opened, I saw one of the footage where one of the junior engineers was saying they've never seen anything like this. I don't know if you saw that footage. I mean, it's totally beyond the expectation of even the VRA. You have a situation now where there are huge settlements. The interministerial committee would have to consider all the options. No option should be off the table. This specific matter of settlements, people are quite reluctant after living in places for literally all their lives. And there's some flooding, unless the flooding is going to be permanent. Once people have the impression that another 1 month and it will be over, I don't know how the people would react to it. But obviously, the people have to be involved and they must agree to be resettled. I doubt the success of that, because you have people in Accra and other places where flooding takes place every year. Every year.
And they don't move.
And they don't move. They move where the flooding is about to happen. A typical example is Weija. You know, as for Weija, I believe that those of them with permits should be resettled, because they have permits, whether acquired wrongly or rightly, they have permits. But those of them without permits really should be moved. I mean, those houses and so on.
So you think it might be difficult to convince people to be resettled?
If the people, I'm saying no option should be off the table.
Okay.
But in the matter of resettlement, people are really attached to, I can tell you, my hometown, where I come from, in Sutem, is now a big town in the Fantiakwa district of Achim, Ibuakwa. In the 1960s, there was a rainstorm. Totally destroyed the village. And the government at that time, the Dr. Buzio's government, decided to resettle the people. And so they built new houses for them, which were, I mean, not the traditional mud types, were concrete. And they called it New Site. So, you know, Linda Door. When you get to Linda Door from Accra, the left side, that is the settlement I'm talking about, the new one. Nice houses built for them in the 1970s. You know, after the rainstorm, even though the houses were allocated to the inhabitants of Insutem and so on, many of them ended up renting new houses and going back to the original village. Got some help together to fix the roofs, and they are still there. You know, so people become so attached to where they are. But like I'm saying, no option should be off the table.
Yes, I agree with that, because while some people are very attached to where they are for many reasons, cultural and so on, many people also have nowhere to go. They really have nowhere to go, even if they wanted to go. And so I think that perhaps that option should be on the table and should be made available to them.
Absolutely.
So that, you know, they can make the choice as to whether or not they want to move. But this is not a flooding, a simple or mere flooding. Communities have been totally submerged. So they don't even have access to their homes anymore.
Now,
and
we also have to look at it from what exactly has happened. We have water excess.
Yes.
The water has a pathway. 2 questions. Why don't we control the pathway, and why don't we find a way to use the water? Because there's a time when we have a drought in this country. Every year, or ever so often, part of the reason why we had to move from hydro into other forms of power, this thing, is because when that drought 6-7 year cycle comes, there's not enough water. So we have a water problem at both ends.
Yeah.
And how do we find a way of making sure that we don't waste water? Because that's basically what is happening. It's taking a pathway through a town. Where are the dikes? Where are the channels? And Holland has done it. It's very expensive. But Holland, we are below the sea level. Accra is below the sea level generally. So you have to have a way of understanding the engineering in it, because you can get it both ways. Even when it enters this thing and you have high tide, the water will start coming back into the land. Mm-hmm. We must look at it holistically and find a way to ensure that we can still harvest some of this water, even if you have to create mini dams as you go along.
Do you mean the water from the spillage?
Yes.
Or the water in the dam?
From the spillage.
Isn't it too contaminated?
No, I'm talking about, it wouldn't be if it had a proper channel to go through. Mm-hmm. And it was being channeled towards a particular point. And it's a very difficult engineering feat, because you have a situation where it's also coming from the sea because of our low level this thing. So you're getting it kind of both ways, from the Kita area, from the Aloga area, etc. But why don't we have reservoirs where these waters will go into? A number of them. Don't look at it. So if you're talking of resettlement, mm-hmm. then those places will hold permanent water up to a point. Mm-hmm. Because any extra water that comes in goes into a reservoir of one type or the other. And these should be huge reservoirs built. I'm not saying that is the answer. I might sit with an engineer now and he will say, no, we can't do this for that reason or that reason. But we must find a way to begin to harvest water. Because for me, it is a power source, it is a cooking source, water is life. So why is it that when we have a drought season, it's like with everything else, Nana, food. You go, when our tomato seasons are in, tomato is everywhere, then it's gone. We do not find a way of storing it. Mangoes, oranges, watermelons, seasonal bumper harvest. You get to out of season, you can't find it, the price is high. So across the board, and water is no exception. We must now stop, and that's why I said there should be a long-term program. We have the emergency now, let's deal with it. But people should start sitting down and bring in intellectual power in this one, international power into this. How did you do yours? What happened? What if this is going to take us 20 years to achieve because of the costing? Let's start now and start saying that this is the program for it, so that in 20 years' time, we don't even talk about it anymore because it doesn't exist. That is the way to plan.
I mean, I take your point that the water after the dam, where it becomes the river,
yeah.
Before the dam, it is the lake.
Yes.
The water lake. And, even in putting up the dam to create the lake, hundreds of settlements had to be resettled.
Yes.
If you didn't resettle, you drown. Yes. So that one, permanently, because the water is going to take over your communities.
Not to tell them, but they even harvest timber.
Yes,
because
still.
of that, still.
Yeah.
That's how high it is.
So that one, when the dam was, the wall was put in the river, Volta, and the water backed up, it took over your settlements permanently.
Yeah.
So that one, there's nothing like
I agree.
Being moved to some higher ground and you coming back. There's no village there, so there's no debate about it. And hundreds of settlements of villages
people were resettled, yes.
And they were resettled on a massive scale.
Yeah.
But the point is, after the dam, where it becomes the normal river, the river Volta,
yeah.
and the massiveness of the river, the lake is about 20 times the size of the river. But even the river is massive. And when you get to the Sogakope Bridge and you see the river, it's huge.
Yes.
A lot of water passing under the bridge into the sea where it turns into salt. You can't use it anymore.
No.
And this is fresh water.
Yes.
So that one, we should be able to do something about it. I mean, away from this is a disaster that is overwhelming. I mean, the waters have come to some volume that there's nothing you can do. But after that, the river itself, that volume, you know, in your party's manifestos over the period, in my party's manifesto over the period, there's always something about irrigating the Accra Plains. Accra Plains is huge. When you're driving towards, in the Volta region towards there, and you look to your left, you look to your right, it's just grass. As far as your eyes can see, both to the left and right, just grass. Plain, you know, and the land is fertile because grass is growing on it. There's not a single cassava, a single yam that you can see, just grass. And the Volta Lake is there, and just a few kilometers ahead, flowing into the sea. And in our manifestos, and you listen to State of the Nation address after State of the Nation after since Rawlings, it's there. We'll irrigate Accra Plains, please. This is a low-hanging fruit that I believe when in another 5 months when this calamity would have been over, we have to bring a certain national focus on the discussion as to allowing all this volume of water just to flow away. Fortunately for us, a few entrepreneurs have developed resorts. And so they are making commercial use of the water, which is good. But the potential for farming, I mean, it's a country we import onion. And you have this vast Accra Plains and this vast amount
Why
of
do you think
water.
we're not taking it seriously? Government after government after government.
Commitment.
Commitment.
Yes. And so, like I'm saying, after this calamity, I expect that there will be a focused national discussion to achieve this. And there's a new Minister for Agriculture, my brother Brian Champion. He's made a serious commitment just 2 days ago or so when they had some summit with the president in attendance where he talked about bringing a certain focus to irrigate the Accra Plains. He's new, so let's say that he's brought in a new energy. We only have about a year, but something should start. And you, the media, should play a role in this, in making sure that the advocacy not to allow this huge volume of water. For once, governments should live up to its word as far as irrigating the Accra Plains, because then all this volume of water will be channeled to very good use to provide food and livelihoods for young people. Once the irrigation channels are there, people will then take up farming in those. And the huge land and huge water lying next to each other. All you need to do is connect them.
Let me read a message coming in from a viewer now who says that, now, are there any thoughts, discussions, or any plans about compensation for the victims? And I don't even know who should pay such compensation. Should it be the VRA? Should it be the government? Should it be Ghana Metro? Who has taken responsibility for this? And who should be responsible for paying such compensations?
There has to be rehabilitation, which means getting the people as far as possible to their normal lives. That will mean cleaning up the communities, rehabilitating structures that have been destroyed, replacing properties that have been destroyed, restoring livelihoods that have been lost. So it's a whole package.
And it doesn't look like something that can be achieved, looking at the extent of damage, something that can be achieved in the next month or 2 or 3 or 6.
All the resources, including international assistance, should be sought, including a huge drive to get funding from Ghanaians. I'm sure my brother and myself if there was a coordinated appeal for funds or coordinated funding aid, we can contribute.
TV3 is doing it.
Yes, TV3 is doing it. Many other individuals are doing it.
It has to be. It has to be.
But these
national,
are to.
It has to be a
basically
national,
assist the displaced people for now. But thinking long term, the water is still sitting there. It's been weeks. The water is still sitting there.
Because there's more, the spillage is still
The spillage has not ended. No. And now we are told that the rains are coming.
When the spillage ends,
which will be there for a little bit.
The water will be there for a little bit before it will sink.
Yes, and now the rains are coming. People who have no relatives in Accra or wherever to run to are cramped up in classrooms with their children, pregnant women, little children, men, and pretty much everybody are crammed up in these classrooms. We don't know how long this is going to go on for, and we don't know what's going to happen to them. Now, we've been told that these areas have been declared public health emergency zones. We are concerned about cholera and typhoid and all other waterborne diseases that can come. So right now, as they are there now, I guess the person's question is, while we wait to solve the problem long term, what can we do for these people now? We've sent rice to them, but they cannot cook.
What he's saying, if I heard you right, is a compensation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm saying that compensation means finding some money and giving it to them.
So they can move or go somewhere or do something.
It goes beyond just giving somebody 1,000 cedis.
Yeah.
Yes. It goes way, way beyond it.
Yeah.
If you give the person 1,000 cedis, what have you done? So it goes to getting rehabilitated. I mean, the homes. You have to have a huge national effort to clean up the homes. And not leave it to the people. It has to be a coordinated effort. Cleaning teams, well equipped with proper cleaning materials, have to go in there and help them to clean up the rooms. Structures that have been destroyed to be restored. Livelihoods. In the next couple of the sanitation systems that have been destroyed have to be restored.
Is it safe?
All of it. So it's not just going to find some compensation and then going away. It's bigger than that.
Compensation is a legal term, and it must be quantified. You have different categories of people. We know of businesses who have fish cages where all their stock is gone, because it's been in the river and it's taking the cages away.
Yeah.
We know of people whose farms have been totally destroyed. So, till you are able to quantify, compensation is not necessarily the word at this stage. It has to come. I believe there has to be some form of compensation. But we are talking of survival now. So the first thing, the kind of monies people are thinking about, or I'm thinking about, is, yes, you've put me in a shelter, you're saying, I need to get to buy some stuff, things are coming. Do we get any, for want of a better phrase, TNT, to get me through the next 2 weeks? That's different from compensation. Because the compensation, when the water settles, we can now assess whether you want to leave the area, whether you want to rebuild your hut or your house. All that has to come into the fray when you use the term compensation. And therefore, for me, I think that people are mixing two issues. The survival, which instead of giving cash, people are donating food, people are getting water there, people are trying to get medical supplies, the agencies are doing all that. People who were on holiday have to get back to work, all their clothes, everything is gone. How do I move and get back to where I was? Because some of these people don't necessarily live there. That's their homes, but they work elsewhere or go to school elsewhere. So each to his own, pertaining what their immediate needs are. And so let's look at the immediate needs first. And obviously the most important, shelter, food, clothing. Then the next one that is going to come is medication. All this must be available as and when people need it, and you have the right medical personnel. Then those that have to go and do things elsewhere, how do you help them to get from A to B? People have lost their bank cards, people have lost all their IDs, etc., because of the spillage.
People took nothing. They literally just ran out. Yes.
So till such time that in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we don't know if rains are still coming, that they will even be able to get to the building.
We have been told that the rains are still coming.
Yes. So till we get there, people will need to be able to get from A to B or do what they are. So that is where the district assemblies and the municipalities and all the agencies that are there should assist them. So a compensation, we believe, up to a point. But if people are going to go back, which many are going to do, because they have nowhere to go, actually, and resettle, the question is, if you open the next year, for whatever reason, those gates are opened again, you're back to square one. So, yes, do it in the short term, but have a very, very realistic position.
Long term.
That must happen.
Realistically, even after the waters settle and things return to normalcy, would you say it will be safe to still settle in that community?
Yes.
It will be safe to live there?
Up to a point, because it's a question of communication and getting them information.
So if they were communicated to,
yes.
If they were told about, if they were properly communicated to, because they were communicated to.
Yes.
And the most they could have done, which they did, is leave.
But you live with your
it still destroys. But how realistic is that for them to always have to leave with all of their belongings?
For that, you need a long-term plan. Because even if they all moved out, and in a year 2, that fertile land is there, somebody will move in into that farming. Somebody will say, I'll take the risk. So unless you blockade the area, make it clear that nobody goes into that area. But isn't it better to find a way to channel that water? Because today it's 100 cubic of water. 10 years' time, it could be 200. Now it's gone into further lands. So you need to start planning. What would be our position in 20 years' time when the communities are even bigger? And communities that haven't been touched may be touched because of the generality. So I hear the cry, but I think that it needs, as he says, a very important national program.
Yeah.
And we must not be planning for political 4-year cycles, 4 years. You have to have a 20-year plan in terms of we must build these issues and set up these things, whether it's irrigation, whether it is reservoirs. How do we do that over the next 20 years so that we are not even have to talk about it again? Because you have to find a way to deal with this water, and to our benefit.
Let me read another message coming in. Now, I saw the pregnant woman you were talking about. It made me very sad. Is it possible for the government to first remove such people like the aged, pregnant women, sick people, children, and so on, while they look for a long-term solution? It appears this crisis will continue for at least 1 month. Surely there must be a way. Anyway, we're still talking about the Akosombo Dam spillage. In a moment, we're going to cross over to talk about the resignation of 2 of the members of the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral, the Archbishop Duncan Williams and then Reverend Eastwood Anaba. Just to wrap up the conversation, finally, gentlemen, what will be your final words? The point or the topic for this conversation was whether or not a state of emergency ought to be declared. And I think from Nana Akomia's first submission, he agrees that, we need it is a state of emergency. We need some international assistance as well. I'm not sure I got your final point on whether or not it should.
I said it should be a state
it should be. Yeah. All right.
We also need to be clear in our minds that if we say a state of emergency, what does it bring to the table? Yeah, because work is going on. The fundamental aim is to get as much as possible relief items: shelter, food, water, sanitation, medicines, the works. If a state of emergency would facilitate our efforts to get more, why not? So
I think internationally it helps us.
I believe that the international angle is important. I don't know if it's a state of emergency that will trigger.
Not necessarily trigger it, but it will enhance.
But certainly there are channels to
prioritize it.
There are channels to get international aid. Those channels should be activated. I mean, we are not in the best of times as a country, So any assistance that we can get, let's do it. If a state of emergency will help us to get more, why not? But we need to be clear what extra it is going to bring to the table.
All right. Thank you, Nana Komia, for those concluding words. And it is an emergency, and we need all the help we can get. Of course, the government alone cannot do this. As much as possible, we all need to put our shoulders to the wheel to assist. And here at TV3 and Media General and 3 Foundation, we're officially mobilizing supplies, food items, clothing, and other essentials to support our brothers and our sisters in the Volta region who have been affected by the spillage. So we need items such as food, clothing, books, medicines, building materials, and so on to ease the situation that they currently find themselves in. So all your donations are welcome. Please Momo us on 057 433 110, or you can also Momo us on our merchant code 120494. It's MTN 120494, and the name of on the number is 3 Foundation. All right, you can please reference all of your donations with the word Akosombo, so we know exactly what it's for. You can call us if you have any inquiries on 0243 126 282. We're very grateful in advance for all of the help that's coming in. Can I
just clarify one thing? Not directly because of, say, drowning or whatever, but because of the floods. People have had snake bites.
Yes.
Because snakes have moved
inland.
And so there have been at least 3 or 4 fatalities from snake bites, but not from drowning. That's where we are.
And also, what you are doing, the TV3, trying to mobilize some funding, is commendable. But I believe that there has to be a national fundraising effort. So you don't want TV3. I mean, of course, there seems to be some gap.
Yeah.
And you are out of concern, you're trying to fill in. But you don't want a situation where there are 50 organizations all purporting to raise funding and mobilize resources. It has to be a national effort. This is so big that it has to be a national effort to raise to raise funding, both internally and also internationally.
Thank you, Nana Komia. So yesterday we had news about 2 of the most respected men in the Christian fraternity in Ghana who were members of the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral. They have resigned. Archbishop Dag Heward-Mills, I beg your pardon, well, he resigned last year in August, but yesterday Duncan Williams and Reverend Eastwood Anaba have resigned. They cited issues which include the failure of the government to appoint an independent accounting firm to audit all public funds contributed to the National Cathedral, and said they have done this as a matter of conscience and faith. Now, after the resignation of Dag Heward-Mills last year, a lot of questions were asked about what the position of the other members of the Board of Trustees was, and whether or not Dag Heward-Mills was acting alone. Now, we've seen that 2 others have resigned. What does it mean? Where is this going? Are we to expect more resignations? Gentlemen, how did you take the news yesterday when you heard?
Well, let me start by saying, in terms of the charismatic churches, and I'm not talking of the Catholics or the Presbyterians, the churches and Methodists, Lighthouse, perhaps, has built more churches than most. And so when it comes to, and I'm talking of huge edifices, like the Kadesh, then the one on the Aburi Road, etc. So I'm not talking about his religion or faith, but in terms of building churches, he has a good idea what it entails. Duncan Williams also, and Reverend Eastwood Anaba. So all these religious leaders are involved in church building. And your antenna should have gone up immediately when Dag Heward-Mills says, I'm not part of this. Because he had certain concerns that he felt he was not comfortable with at the time.
Yes.
The politics of the whole thing got in the way, so I believe that the recent two didn't want to be seen to be partisan or not in any shape, form, or fashion, and felt that this was a faith-based issue, so they should do everything possible, and may have asked the government of the day to do certain things. For example, have an independent auditor deal with issues. They've reached a point where that appears not to have been done. And so they can no longer be associated with the project. I think that there has to be a serious look at that whole project. And let me jest a little. Maybe we should declare a state of emergency on the cathedral.
As well.
Because of the fact that too much has happened with regard to the cathedral. The membership, the raising of funds, the use of government money to deal with it, the quantum of the project, the fact that the quantum kept changing in terms of what the vision was initially and what it subsequently became, the promise to get monies privately and then use government funds to get involved in it, the scandal of a dual nationality, a dual identity for one of the topmost members of the board. It is cloaked, unfortunately, in scandal. And unfortunately for the government, it has come at a time when Ghana and the world have a serious financial economic crisis. And Ghana seems to have been the worst with haircuts, etc. So the cathedral is a blot on the government of the day. It's the best, and I'm not using derogatory language, but it is a blot on the government of the day because a lot of things have been done wrongly. And the way and manner these things are done, the accounting process, and yes, people will speak about it and have to find ways out of it, but there is a smell, and that smell is not good. So now when you have the religious leaders who were all behind it, peeling off one by one over a period, then the smell becomes even greater.
Does it make a difference that they all say that in spite of their resignation, they still support the vision, the original vision? Does it make a difference?
Nobody has a problem with what the vision is. People had a problem with it being a personal one. People had a problem with the use of government funding. People had a problem with the lack of accountability. No Christian has a problem with a new church being built.
Okay. So
I think that people should differentiate between what people's complaints were.
Okay.
And I haven't heard people will talk about the timing, people will talk about the size of it, people will talk about the cost of it. Nobody says a church is not a good thing. Not even
people say that it's a misplaced priority.
So timing.
Timing. At the time.
That's why I said timing is an issue.
Okay.
So everybody has a reason why this should not be at this time.
Yeah.
And the cost and the grandiose nature of it. And
the location of
it. And what we did. It's like most things we said of the government of the day. In order to do something, you must first of all, as a good planner, know where your source of income is.
Yeah.
So if you knew that you're going to embark upon a project and it's taking you 2 years to raise 60% of the money, but it's a 5-year project, you can think that, okay, The remaining 40%, another 2 years, I'll have it. And it's a 5-year project. You didn't even have that because you were not even sure what you wanted to build. And you had started breaking down buildings, which were useful. And in doing that, you incurred cost because all the judges, they relocated, and the embassies, they cost money.
Yeah.
And that is still hanging. So in terms of the planning, left is a lot to be desired. I mean, the cathedral is a bad blot on the government of the day in terms not of the idea, but the way in which they've tried to execute it. And I know I've put my brother in a tight spot, but he's normally good at wriggling out, so we shall watch.
Nana Kumia, what does this resignation or these resignations mean for the integrity of the project?
Thank you. I can assure my brother I am not in any tight spot at all.
Okay.
There is no tight spot. There are issues that need to be resolved.
Okay.
Fundamentally, I agree with him that the issue is not about whether it is necessary to have a national cathedral. And I agree with him on that score. And indeed, when you look at the letter from the two eminent religious leaders, Duncan Williams and Anaba.
Yes, Reverend Eastwood Anaba.
They clearly are committed to the project. And they are still hoping in their letter that they will be part of the project.
They support the vision.
When the issues that they have are resolved.
No, sure. they have resigned completely. They are not looking to support the project as trustees. They're looking to continue to support the vision, but they are no longer part of the project.
Yes, for now, because of the issues they have. But they support
When
the
you say for now, it sounds as if they are going to come back.
Well, if you
do you know something that we don't know?
I don't know anything. Listen, I'm just looking at their letter. You support the project. You have issues with the management. So you step aside. But you support the project. So presumably when those issues are resolved, you are asked to come and lend your expertise. You come back because you support the project. And when you look at the letter, they've painted the vision in very glowing terms. And all of us support that vision. That a country such as Ghana, when you look at our neighboring countries, you can see that Ghana has been quite a favored country. You look at Togo, you look at Burkina, you look at Cote d'Ivoire, you look at Nigeria and Mali and so on. We are a haven. And it will seem clearly that there's a certain grace that has been bestowed on us. And if we are going to acknowledge God for his grace upon us, it's totally in order. And my brother seems to have a problem with the land. Did you say you had a problem with the land?
I have a problem with the way the land was acquired so early when we were nowhere with the money available to actually...
Well, but if you don't acquire the land, then what are you going to acquire? Now, that land over there, in that part of Accra, these are prestigious, expensive lands, isn't it? But we've been giving it away to private developers to provide commercial accommodation. That's what. So if we take a few acres for God, what's the problem?
There's a lot of vacant land that you could have gone to use for God, if that was the plan.
I'm saying.
But if you raise down
land,
buildings
that place
that were totally all right, some of them rather new.
I made the comment. Let me clarify for him.
Okay.
Look, when you are going to build, and in order to do that, you are destroying property which judges live in. Our own judges were living. It's not like somebody's come to do commercial building. There were judges' bungalows. Have the money in place, because when you destroy the bungalows, there's a cost. There's a cost of the land itself before you even come to the buildings. Have the money in place so that by now we'll be looking at lentil level. Do you understand what I'm saying? The thing is there. On the face of it, it appears there was no money to even get you anywhere close. We have a hole.
So is your problem the siting or what?
My problem is that you cannot destroy land or property which exists.
So your problem is the siting?
My problem is the lack of planning to get that.
Oh, okay. So it's not a siting. Okay.
The site, so it can be there. I don't have a problem with where it is.
So now we're on the same page. It's not there. But you are saying that properties have to be removed.
Yes.
But the ones that have been given to commercial operators, there are properties on them. The ones that we've given to commercial people and they put up 10-story and there are properties on them.
Back to Mr. Secretary, exactly.
Let me finish.
Do they pay for the land?
Oh, sorry?
Do they pay for the land?
Absolutely, they pay for the land.
But has government paid for this land?
But it's government land.
Back to the matter.
Now,
back to the matter.
All these judges that you have
back to the matter. Yeah, but no.
But if you say
on the matter of the resignation, what does it mean for the integrity of this project moving forward?
All of us are happy that the vision is there. Now, I have always have a point of departure about the funding of the National Cathedral. And it's clear to me that the original concept was a state and religious leaders collaboration. And when you look at the original statements that were made by the president and so on, the state was going to provide the land and the implementation of the project was going to be done in conjunction with the religious leaders. There was no concept of the state putting in money. And I believe that that original concept would be the best concept. If you look at the caliber of religious leaders that we have today, and who are all put together as board of trustees, you look at them, they have shown excellent ability to attract funding to put up edifices like what we are talking about. Okay. Look at Hayward Mills. Look at what is done in my constituency, North Carnation Industrial Area. I think it's called Kodesh.
Yeah, Kodesh.
It's a whole mini city. And I understand it's got one on the Kwapim Hills, which is even more grandiose. I don't know the name that it is, but everybody who's been there has been awed by the kind of vision and so he's demonstrated a certain expertise.
Now he's resigned.
Beyond that, beyond him, Duncan Williams, the edifices that he's put up across Ghana and across the world, Otabil, Isudanaba, all of them.
We have 2 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, so I want to know if you had left it for them, provided them the land, I'm sure they would have been able to come in together, put up this National Cathedral. The problem has been the involvement of state money.
So you don't agree with how the government has handled it so far?
The provision of state money is what has led to all these issues. Now I'm surprised that they say there should be accountability because there has been controversy. My brother tried to play up. So if they are asking for auditing, but I understand also that Deloitte and Touche have been engaged to conduct auditing on the financing of the cathedral up to date. So I'm a little surprised if the two gentlemen are not aware of the engagement of Deloitte and Touche, which is an internationally reputable firm, to conduct auditing. I don't know what the problem is.
They are saying that there has been a failure by the government to appoint a private auditing firm.
It has to be the board of trustees. That they wrote to the board of trustees to provide the auditing.
Okay.
And they say that auditing has not been done.
In their letter, they said it's a failure of the government to provide a private auditing firm.
Well, whatever it is. But I believe that they wrote the letter asking for an audit to the board of trustees.
Yes. Okay.
So if there's a failure, then it's on the part of the board of trustees. But like I'm saying to you, and I'll send you corresponding to that effect when I have your number, is there has been Deloitte and Touche appointed to conduct auditing.
So what they've written in the letter is not true.
That's what I'm saying. The trustees will have to come with clarification, because even I know that Deloitte and Touche have been.
It's interesting that you're saying this,
yes,
because
I'll send you the correspondence.
That's the information that we all have, that there has not been an appointment of any private auditing firm to do this, and that's the reason for their resignation.
Well, they've just resigned.
Is it a public document?
Look at it.
So I see it. Deloitte audit.
Yes.
Can I read this?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So, audit appointment, engagement letter to the National Cathedral of Ghana. We appreciate the opportunity. Okay, so this is on the letterhead of Deloitte, and it is
addressed to who?
It is, well, it just says, Dear Sir or Madam, audit appointment, engagement letter to the National Cathedral of Ghana. We appreciate the opportunity of the service of the National Cathedral. We are committed to providing you with high quality professional services in an efficient and timely manner. This letter was dated, or is dated, 17th of March 2023, and it's from Deloitte.
To?
It doesn't say who to, but at the end of the letter it says, well, this is not signed. Okay, well, it's signed, but it doesn't say. It's from Charlotte Forson Abbey, engagement partner. And on behalf of the National Cathedral, there's no signature. And there's no signature, there's no, what do you call it?
So who is it going to?
Witness. So I don't think that, it's not signed. So who is it going to?
You said it's signed.
It's signed by Deloitte, but it's not signed on the part of the National Cathedral of Ghana. So who is the letter to?
Well, it's to the trustees, I imagine. Where's the beginning? It's to the Executive Director, National Cathedral of Ghana Secretariat, Presidential Lodge, State House, P.O. Box, OS 2482, Suakra, reference, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But the topic is audit engagement letter to the National Cathedral of Ghana.
And this is from Deloitte?
Yes. So
but,
obviously...
Okay.
Obviously,
there's more to it.
There's more to it. And so we'll wait to see. But I'll be surprised why the two prominent members of the board would not be aware that this audit has been commissioned, because that too will be an issue of communication. So let's wait and see. But there should be no debate about any effort to obtain accountability. There should be no debate at all. And it should be a normal function of any enterprise that uses state funds.
I think this is something that we'd like to investigate further. From the letter that the two men of God signed, and it has been widely publicized, they resigned from the board of trustees of the National Cathedral because, and they said it's because of the failure of the government to appoint an independent accounting firm to audit all public funds contributed to the National Cathedral. Now, we have just been informed by Nana Komia that there has actually been the engagement of Deloitte and Touche, Deloitte, to audit the public funds that have been used so far for the construction of the National Cathedral. The letter is dated March 2023. We're going to look further into it, investigate further into it, and bring you more information on this as we go. This has been the big issue on TV3 New Day. I've been talking to Mr. Alex Segbefia and Nana Komia. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you
for coming in. How about we cash out now? Good time to make some money. If you dial *439#, it's time for you to check your Momo balance. All right, 4321 stop. Your number is 0532-026****. Congratulations, you've won 1,000 Ghana cedis. Congrats to you. Still to come, we're going to be hanging out with songstress Adina in a bit. Stay tuned.
The first 2 years, your baby will experience amazing growth in so many ways. To fuel it, they need the right nutrition. With Cerelac, 1 bowl of goodness a day provides the wholesomeness of carefully selected grains and the yummy taste baby loves. Cerelac is fortified with Iron Plus, contributing to your child's nutritional needs. Cerelac, it's all good, Mom. This advert is FDA approved.
Colgate Herbal is formulated from unique natural herbs to strengthen teeth and keep gums healthy. Colgate Herbal. scientifically gums. This advert is FDA approved.